These are all the greater designs. People respect others based on your ability to be decent, to negotiate in good faith, and to be able to represent your people's interests than yours. I had the opportunity in my short life to meet some of the stalwarts of politics and the labor movement in the Caribbean. And I remember the former Prime Minister, Rivera Bird of Antigua, talking about goals when you go into negotiations and always putting yourself last. If this is about electricity rates in Linden and trying to ameliorate the impact of the rates on people, there is a mechanism for doing that that is available. Discussions with the government. The president has taken the initiative and set up a committee. You can't do nothing else until the committee comes back and say, yes, these are the four options. One, let's stop buying from both sides, and we have an investor here today that can come and generate electricity for $11 a kilowatt and sell it back to us for 20. Two, the government will put phase increases. Three, put it on to GPL. Four, let's hold until the hydro come in. But there are a number of options.
Alternative energy.
Alternative energy. Wind. But where is the reasonableness in the negotiations to say, okay, let us give this technical committee 3 months to do its work and come back, and in the 3 months we will have X, Y, and Z. Right? But you're not seeing that. The politics behind it is people are seeing this as an opportunity to bring down a government in the end.
I want to take you back a little though to last Wednesday, well, the 18th, the events then. We all knew what happened, well, what transpired at the bridge. 3 persons were left dead. The government has taken some action based on some requests by the people of Linden, including the removal of the commander, well, transfer of the commander out of that post, and the ranks were informed.
Out of the area.
Out of the area. Not post, the area. And the ranks who were suspected to be involved. We've had the autopsy yesterday, Wednesday, an independent pathologist present, and so forth. But that's just one aspect of the entire being able to bring out what really happened. You spoke to about establishing the Commission of Inquiry. If you were to examine the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry and the motion yesterday, how does that impact on the work of the Commission?
Well, clearly for me, I don't know, but Gail, we have already decided, the opposition has decided who is responsible.
Who is guilty?
Who is guilty, and what penalties the person should face. They've already tried and convicted. With what has been happening and the strong position they're putting themselves in, the opposition, they're boxing themselves in a corner. A commission of inquiry wouldn't bring out anything new that would convince them otherwise, because they've put themselves in a corner with all their reactive statements, and possibly not only reactive but deliberate statements, because they want to appeal to be the saviors in this instance. So the commission of inquiry right now is going to be on tenterhooks, in the sense that no matter how objective whoever we get and the recommendations that come out of it, the findings and the recommendations, if it doesn't gel with what the opposition have said now, then we're going to have issues. Secondly, the statements I heard in Parliament last night, for me, was frightening, in the sense that it appears that people who, in a civilized society, in a democratic society, should sit and negotiate, are now demanding and saying this is fixed, this or nothing. You know, as Minister Manichan said last night, let us allow the system to work. We can't convict now, and if the finger points to Minister Rohi, she is going to stand up with them and call for X, Y, and Z. But you can't preempt all of this. You have to allow the independent inquiry to happen without having all of these statements that are inflammatory, and give the system, the process that we put in place, a chance to work, a reasonable chance to work too.
The Commission of Inquiry is not only specific to the shootings, it's about all the events surrounding, leading up to, and subsequent to. And so Mansoor is absolutely right. The changing of the goalpost from a Commission of Inquiry now to the picking of, cherry picking, who should go, and therefore someone else will be the next time around, and so on. And this whole argument about ministerial responsibility is actually quite rare, that a minister is a no-confidence motion for a minister based on some act or omission or whatever on the part of a department under their watch. I think that part of the issue of the motion is to rev up for Congress, to be able to say that here we got rid of a number of people, and to create a situation, to hype a situation. The Commission of Inquiry, and I believe that there are persons in the negotiations who want the Commission of Inquiry, and there are others who are playing with whichever they're buffeted. Regrettably, they're all political leaders, and regrettably, they're not being responsible. No one seems to have the political will to manage, and so everyone's vying for who's going to get votes on the weekend, and hopefully somebody will win. And they always seem to have trouble with the calculation of the votes anyway. Even at the presidential candidacy level, they had to recount, was it 3 times? And I kind of think that's going to happen again this weekend, but I could be wrong, who knows. But the issue, though, that people have to look at is that the Constitution of Guyana is the president who appoints the minister. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that Parliament removes a minister. Even Parliament can't remove an MP. It could say that an MP has done something wrong and censor them. It could even make a recommendation that that party should remove them, because we come into Parliament from a party list. We're a PR system. And so we have recall legislation. But this is to create a situation to show that they have the power. And this bullyism and this way of managing things has been the history of the beginning of this Parliament. The discussions on the Speaker. Starting with that. So strike one was you must get the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. They took both by votes. Setting up dates for the next sitting, which is exclusively the government prerogative, has become a negotiation issue. I, as Chief Whip, and the Chief Whip of the Opposition have to meet and try and find an agreement on a date, so that when the Prime Minister announces the date, they won't vote against it. This is, again, bullyism. The third issue of the parliamentary committees and the composition of the parliamentary committees, which went to court. We know the results of that. The issue, look what happened in the budget. We're in the midst of discussion, in the talks with the APNU. We spent all day on Sunday. What day was that? 22nd of April. There's some movement, even if for me, I've been in negotiations for so many years that when you move 2 inches, for me, that is progress from what is a hard line of all or nothing. You move 2 inches, it's progress. So in the midst of that, we agree on the Sunday, the April 22nd, to put out a joint statement. Lo and behold, Monday before we're supposed to meet back, there are motions tabled in the Parliament to cut GPL by 1 billion, to cut Office of the President almost its entire budget, both from AFC and Mr. Greenwich for the APNU. So this has been the history, and I'll stick to this Parliament. These new political leaders, these new kids on the block, which are not kids actually, have either it is that they're little political experience, politically immature, reckless, or whatever it is, that they're coming in with this emboldened position. They have one seat more, and that's only if the two of them work together. And so far that has worked. But he and Mansour and I have been around in politics for a little while, that we know that this cannot always be assumed.
Yeah.
Cannot always be assumed.
As easy as it works, it could be unworked.
Right?
And
that is why every time they have parliament, they have to make sure the date is when they have it, so that one seat will be preserved.
And the part of this too, while they have the issues within the PNC on jockeying for positions, the other issue was AFC. APNU did not want to be upstaged by AFC in terms of the cuts. So AFC
Exactly.
was going to be maintaining a hardline position, cut, right? And so that, in the end, would have made APNU look soft in the eyes of some, they believe, and giving ground to AFC. But, you know, Eddie, politics is about winning over the support of the majority of people based on your prudent policies and programs. We underestimate the power of the silent majority. The vocal minority always feel that they speak for the majority. They don't. They don't. The vocal minority don't. And so the people in the APNU would have reacted to what AFC position was, and to some extent may have pushed themselves into a corner that they couldn't retract from. And so while the first day, you know, the budget went through like nothing, because we had the AFC withdrawing on one motion, I think it was, on the estimates. And then when the hardlines went back, and hardliners said, you see, the AFC will get more support than us. You know, people would say they're the real opposition. And they backtrack. But in this, we have to see what's best for Guyana. And we've heard them talk in the last election of putting Guyana first. What's best for Guyana? Guyana can't afford to slide back at this time. We can't afford. We have to continue to be seen as a country that is growing, building a democracy, and building a society where everyone is living every day better and better. And I find a great amount of solace in the statement put out by the diplomatic community here that call for reasonableness and dialogue. I think we are forgetting that the diplomatic community in Guyana issued a statement. And we need to heed some of those. And they have a different window because they have nothing to gain from this. But they have a window looking in and see what is the rational way to go. And that's what they have decided.
I want to take you back to the motion, though, the no confidence motion. And I want to, you've had the agreements at the discussion level or the consultation level with the Region 10 administration, the APNU representatives. I want you to just expound a little on the violation of the agreement by agreeing to a commission inquiry but move to the parliament with a no confidence motion.
Yeah, they clearly that it seems to signal that they are, as Mansour said, they're trying, finding a minister guilty before you even brought any evidence or anything to indicate, and therefore premeditating the results of a commission, or in fact removing the requirement for a commission, or at least on that issue. And I think that's in bad faith. When one of the lessons of negotiation is that one expects both sides to go in with some good faith, and that whatever comes out is in good faith, and that one attempts to hold to that. In any negotiation, not one side can ever get all that they want. It's impossible. And therefore both sides have to flex and to share, and both sides have to go back and convince their constituents. We have, and I'll just remind the public, when in the post-98, 97 elections, and all the violence that followed, and the Hertz-Massen agreement was signed, by Mrs. Jagan and then subsequently St. Lucia Accord, I don't know, the public may not know, but within our party, there were many, many people who were traumatized by this decision by the president to sign these two accords. And in fact, prior to that, after the elections and the demonstrations here and fires and people being beaten, I remember having to spend that weekend going, and several weekends going in and telling people, don't march on Georgetown, stay quiet, keep calm, we're going to resolve this and stuff like that, and being cursed by my party members and party groups and communities about how dare you as a government not be able to manage the situation. When Mrs. Jagan signed those two accords, the same thing. This is political leadership. You have to go and get cursed by people, and you have to also persuade people to what is a middle ground of rational thinking. It is highly irresponsible for politicians to not do that. And so we've had a lot of experience of taking decisions as a government based on what we thought was the right judgment at the time and the circumstance at the time, and then having to go and convince our supporters or sympathizers of why we had to do this. This is what is being called on now to the leaders of the APUNU and AFC. Linden has to return to normalcy. The roadblock have to be removed. People have to be able in Linden to go to the shop and the bank, go back to work. Bosai hasn't worked for how many days now? Over a week?
About 9 days.
So people aren't getting paid. The Bosai cannot afford to lose because there are bauxite ships that have to be loaded. You have fuel and food that have to be traversed through Linden to get to other areas. And therefore, the first thing is that, and I believe that the Lindeners want to return to normalcy. I believe that from all the information I'm having. I believe that there's a small group that is, a relatively small group, that is keeping up the blockades and keeping up the camping out and keep revving up the tempo. But I do believe the majority of Lindeners want to get back to normalcy. They would like, obviously, who wants to pay electricity? I don't want to pay electricity, but I do every month because I have to. That's part of what you have to do. You know, I don't want to pay water, but I pay it. And if you ask, you know, I've talked to businessmen and so on, and they say, look, Gail, get the Lindeners to understand that they must pay because we also pay. It's just one of those things you have to do in life as an adult. You pay your rates and taxes, you pay your water bill, you pay your electricity. We would love a society where that didn't happen, but find me what part of the world that doesn't happen. So people have to, the Linden committee has to get back. The first step is to clear the roadblocks. Get the tires and the logs and the cars and everything off the road. Open back up Linden for business. Let the Lindeners settle down, while at the same time, the proposals the government have on the table with Solomon and Norton and Nigel Hughes and Vanessa Kissoon and Rupert Ruknarine, they're the ones who met with the president. Tell us, what in the language you don't need? Let's get down to business. Let's set up the technical team. Mm-hmm. We will hold on the July 1st once the technical team is agreed to and it is functioning. Mm-hmm. But we are not pansies either, that to say that this they'll see and they're not responding as after 48 hours, that therefore there's a hold on all these issues. It is a negotiated arrangement. And so I believe firmly, and I hope by this program, to call on the Lindeners to let us get back to normalcy. There are clearly issues that have to be resolved. There are clearly issues that irritate the Linden community. Some we have to do better. We have to resolve. There are others that there are other characters and actors that are involved. But as Guyanese, we can solve. We can find a way forward in solving our problems. And in that way forward, it doesn't mean that we all agree with everything. But we agree with some of the things that will bring change for us. Nobody can ever find a solution that everybody agrees to. But we have a responsibility as government, and we have been talking. This government has talked and talked and talked through the 20 years, through difficult circumstances. We have been talking all the time, and we're prepared to continue doing that. But we also have to have movement. We cannot be the one that says, look, let's do these things, and there's no response from the other side. And in the interim, you go with a motion to remove a minister. This is not being done in good faith. And it shows that you have too many hands, and the Lindeners' voice, the voice of the people of Linden, is not being heard. Because it is clear that those who are negotiating for the Lindeners are not also informing them of the two sides and what's going on and stuff like that. So I hope that the Linden community and women and men, children, that we can get this situation back to normalcy. That's the first major step that has to take place.
Thank you very much, Ms. Teixeira. Your final thoughts. We're almost out of time. Your final thoughts.
Eddie, this is not about brinkmanship. It has to be about leadership. The person who practices brinkmanship, because they have certain amount of power behind them, they will take you to the edge and pull you back. Here we require leadership, because at stake is not only the political careers of people, but it's the community, economic livelihood, the welfare of the residents, and ultimately the entire country.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Teixeira, Mr. Ndir. This is where we have to go. We want to thank you very much for joining us.